Everybody, hello. Avi Rose here. I'm the interim executive director at Ashby Village, and just going to say a few introductory words before we move forward here. So some of you know I'm pretty new to Ashby Village. I came in June to fill in for Andy, and will continue to be the kind of hold that executive director space while you're searching for your new ongoing person. But because I'm new, I have some relatively fresh impressions. And one of the things I've been most impressed with and inspired by has been for Ashby Village, and really the whole village model, is the way people organize themselves, come together to care for each other. And, I think a lot of that happens informally, right? I mean, people meet each other, they gather in neighborhood groups, and people extend themselves as each other as they develop relationships, which is fantastic. It's really building a community and kind of weaving a web of support. And in addition to that, though, over the years, what's evolved are some structures to offer other kinds of support that are like more structured and more systematic. And some of them are just oriented to organizing activities to keep people healthy and active and engaged in a healthy manner as we age. And some things are to connect people to each other in a caring way and to offer companionship and support, which, as we know, is particularly important as this pandemic just kind of lingers on and keeps many of us from being in person with each other. So those connections are critical for some people. And then there's a team of people who support members who have changes in their lives, maybe due to a fall or a loss, and help that person figure out how to, what they need in order to stay independent and healthy and move in the right direction. And you'll hear more about all these things, but it's all in that framework of organizing members and volunteers to care for each other, to support each other. And I hope that many of you are here today because you're interested in learning more about it, and that you might become part of this team of care mobilizers. The team is amazing, dedicated and hardworking, and not quite as large as it should be for a village this size. And so we have decided to offer this event to encourage other people to join. And I will stop then because that's what the rest of the time is about. So I believe I'm turning it over to Roberta, it's my guess. And thanks very much. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I am Roberta Pressman, and I co-lead the Healthier Aging team with Jeanette Ward. And also today I will be representing the social care team at our meeting today. So thank you all for coming. I'm so happy to see you all. The pandemic has made it so hard to conduct volunteer orientations and training in person. So it's been really hard to reach out to you all and let you know about all the wonderful volunteer opportunities that our Member Support Services team can provide. So we're happy you came and hope some of you will consider joining us. Member Support Services has a lot of parts to it. So today we'll be introducing you to the team leaders from our various teams, and they're going to let you know about what each team does and what kinds of opportunities are available on each team. After each presentation, you'll have a chance to ask questions about the specific team, and we will also try to leave time at the end if you have further questions. If we don't have time at the end and you have other questions, please do put them in the chat box. Thank you. So first, before I introduce our team leaders, I want to give you a short overview about what we mean when we say Member Support Services, because we actually consist of 3 separate teams. Healthier Aging, our health and wellness program, Connections, our friendly visitor program, and the social care team, a social services consultation program. I like to refer to member support services as H&H, health, H-E-L-T-H, and help, H-E-L-P. Our first priority is to keep our members as healthy as possible. So through our healthy aging team, we offer all kinds of ways to keep our members physically active through yoga, aerobics, our great hiking program. And we also try to keep our village members well informed about the latest research on health and wellness through our monthly column in the newsletter, which I hope you have seen, and our lecture series, Embracing Change, offered at various times throughout the year. So whether you like exercising, writing, editing, program planning, we have a job for you on this team. We are also here to provide our members with the second H, help, which includes obtaining relevant services for our members if they become ill, or if they're recovering from surgery, or need help at home, they're grieving a loved one, or just want to make future plans for the future needs. So our social care team can make home visits or call you if the pandemic precludes meeting in person. And we can help you clarify what you need and where to get those needs met. Socialization is also really important for health and well-being. And our connections team, which is our friendly visitor program, can send volunteers to engage with members in a variety of ways. But for various reasons, they may be feeling isolated or in need of more social contact. Each of these teams provide interesting volunteer opportunities, and we would be delighted to have you contact the different team leaders to learn more or to sign up with them. And now I want to introduce our team leaders, starting with Ellen Newman and Mimi Wolff, our connections team. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to see all of you. I'm Ellen Newman, and I have been the connections team coordinator for about 3 years. And in January, Mimi graciously agreed to share this with me, and I am so glad that I have a co-coordinator. Mimi's going to begin telling you a little bit about the team, and then I'll pick up at the end of what Mimi has to say. And we hope that if you have any questions, there'll be time for you to ask them right after the end of our very short presentation. Mimi?
Hi, nice to meet everyone. So the connections team began as a service for people who tend to be more isolated or homebound. Our members, somebody might want just somebody to come visit and have a chat, or to come watch a baseball game, or to go out for tea, or to have a little lunch, or just kind of whatever the two people decide. They might want to play Scrabble, or just chit chat. And we usually encourage people to meet weekly, and usually for an hour or so. And generally people make it an ongoing time, like Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. And before COVID, this was, I think, entirely done in person. And since COVID, folks have been doing it over the phone, or over Zoom, or Skype. And then as things loosened up, in people's yards with masks and socially distanced. And we still have people follow the COVID rules and regulations and protocols, whatever Ashby Village has in place at the time. And it's really up to the member and the volunteer to decide how they want to spend their time. And what we do is Ellen and I recruit people to be volunteers, and a member can be a volunteer as well. And we talk to them about what their interests are, what they're looking for. And then as people, as members they can express interest to find a volunteer to meet with them. And that can be through a number of ways. It can be facilitated through the front office or the neighborhood group. And then, so if I find out that there's a member who's interested in having a connections volunteer buddy, then I talk to that, Ellen or I would talk to that person, and we would try to match people who have similar interests or things that they wanted to do. The relationship is not a therapy relationship, but it does, it is more about the member and less about the volunteer. And this can change over time, and you can, generally become friends, good, friends. And it's really up to the two people, but it starts out as being more of a focus on the member and the member's needs and desires and sort of what they're going through. But it often becomes more of a sort of a equal exchange between the two. And Ellen's just going to give a couple of examples of how that might play out.
Thanks, Mimi. Mimi talked about the fact that often it becomes a friendship, and I want to really just briefly tell you about 3 wonderful examples of that. Mimi mentioned that somebody wanted might watch a ball game, and I know that when I first came to Ashby Village and took this responsibility and pleasure on, I was told about a man who would watch weekly ball games during this, whichever appropriate sports season it was, and he had lost his partner. And so he called, and we had a connections team member who would go over to his house and they'd watch a ball game. And they wouldn't do it, every week, but they would do it on a regular basis. We've also had, and so a real friendship developed out of that. We also have had members who are both volunteers as well as members meet with people during the pandemic. What happened was we had 2 Ashby Village members, one of whom had asked for a connections team friend, and one of whom, of course, was on the team. And when the village felt like our volunteers could not visit in someone's home, well, actually not even meet outside, what this connections person did was she stopped seeing the person as a connections volunteer, because by now they were friends, and they just continued with their weekly walks, because 2 friends could do that where somebody on the connections team couldn't do that. We also had someone who dropped off of the connections team during COVID because her member was quite ill, and she felt as though it was more important for her to see her than it was to, she was wearing a mask and she did get vaccinated. So we've had some changes over time, and I just wanted to tell you about those 3 examples, because they're really wonderful examples about the kind of relationship that can develop. I wanted to mention one other thing. Not only do you meet with this person on a regular basis, but part of the responsibility of being a member of the connections team is we meet once a month. It's not generally, but it's the 2nd Tuesday of the month at 1 o'clock. And these meetings are really important, because it's at these meetings that Mimi and I are available. We're available, obviously, between meetings, but we're available to help you work with whatever issues may come up for you as you are trying to work with your Ashby Village member. We also do in-services. So far this year, we've had a in-service on vision. We've had an in-service on hearing. And generally we bring in we had an in-service earlier about suicide among the elderly. So it's really a learning process. We try and provide as much training as we can to our volunteers, so that when they go into someone's home or when they are talking with them, they have knowledge that some of us would not necessarily have, about elderly and some of the issues. Mimi mentioned that how we match you. What happens is somebody, of course, makes the call, and then either Mimi or I call that person back and try and find out about them, what their interests are. And then when we match up, the thing that I think is really important, because I think you can imagine how hard, not hard, but how unusual it is to have a stranger come into your house or your backyard and be your friend in, one session. So what we say to the Ashby Village member who wants a connections team person, and what we say to the volunteers also, is that the first few sessions are really a trial session. And if it doesn't work out, then we will change things. Very often, a member, not very often, very seldom, very rarely, a member will say, gee, I don't care for this person. We don't have anything in common. And somehow our match was just off. And so we then will try and find another person for that. Occasionally, I can think of maybe twice, we've had people on the team who have said, I've been matched with somebody and it's really not working for me. But everybody knows that going into the relationship. So it's just one of the things that we do to help people be more comfortable, both in their role as a volunteer and giving them what the person needs as a member. I don't have anything else that I want to add right now, but I would like to know if any of you have questions for me and Mimi, and if so, please unmute yourself.
We have about 5 minutes, and any other
Thanks.
questions we'll take at the end. Okay.
Any questions?
I have
Judith?
one.
Oh, Judy, and then Judith, okay?
I've heard that someone is organizing walking buddies. Is that coming under your organization, the Walking Buddies?
Good question. We do have people who ask for people who will walk with them, but the Walking Buddies, Jeanette Ward is going to tell you a little bit more about that. It's a different program, but often we have people who say they're afraid to walk by themselves, and they want somebody who will walk with them. So it's a different program, comes up in both places, Judy. Thank you.
Let me
Judith?
let me add to that because of the pandemic, we've had to go very slowly with that program, and we are planning to enlarge it and make it work, but it may take a little time before it gets too robust. But we're very interested in moving that program forward.
Thanks, Roberta. Judith?
I was just curious as to approximately how many members are participating. What proportion of the membership?
Well, we have 20 volunteers, and each volunteer sees either 1 or 2 people, and each member can have up to 2 volunteers. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay, and I would say, oh, this is just off the top. I didn't think about numbers for today, Judith. I'm sorry. I just didn't think
That's
about it.
okay.
I think we must see about 30 people at least. Mimi, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say that as well. And just to explain, the reason why a member might want 2 volunteers is because they want to see somebody, they want more contact. So they would like 2 times a week. And during COVID, people sometimes, did different things, like 1 volunteer and 1 member, they might talk twice a week for half an hour instead of their 1 time a week in person hour time or something. So, and there is flexibility, but that's the reason why somebody might have 2 connections volunteers, is because they want more contact. And that doesn't happen a lot.
Okay.
Mary?
Oh,
I'm sorry, Judith. I beg your pardon. Please finish.
Oh, well, I was just curious. I was part of North Oakland Village, and we had a team that actually tried to call all of our members periodically just to check in. Is there something like that in Ashby Village, or is it only that you contact people who've requested contact?
We only contact people who request contact. However,
On our team.
Yeah. However, Ashby Village did do, during COVID, when COVID started, did call the members we called the 90+ members every week and the other members every other week. And we did that for several months and then kind of pared down. But generally, it's not that we contact every member.
Okay. Okay, Mary Lee, I think this will be the last question before we go to the next person, and then there'll be time at the end, I hope. Yes.
I'm trying to figure out my time frame of availability because this appeals to me very much.
Oh, great.
And but I have sort of fluctuating demands in my time. I still have some work involvement. So how do you deal with that? I mean, you want to make this commitment and be there. Do you kind of negotiate that with the person that you're developing this relationship with? It's like, gosh, so sorry, I have to travel this week or whatever. I don't want to shorten it. If somebody has a need and an expectation, I want to be there and do that. But so how do you deal with that?
So this comes up, everybody works out their relationship a little differently. And I happen to be somebody for whom it would be really important that I knew that I was seeing the person every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. A lot of people don't feel that. And what they do is they pick a day for the first meeting, of course, and then they just explain that they can't do it every week at the same time, but they will, make an effort to do it every week. And then either at the beginning of the week or at the end of your last meeting, you say, okay, next week I can see you Tuesday at 3. And it's fine. We have people who are still working, and we're grateful to have you. And so is the person who you're visiting. So however you need to work it out, we work it out, you and the other person. Roberta, I think our time must be about up. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, and any other questions you can contact either me or Mimi. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Roberta.
Yeah, thanks, Ellen and Mimi. I'm going to now pick up and talk about the social care team, which was actually the first and the oldest part of member support services. Our volunteers often have a background or training in social services or mental health, but this isn't always required to volunteer with us. You have to like interacting with people and be good at it, have empathy for people in need, and familiarize yourself with the numerous resources, both inside the village and outside the village, that members might need, particularly in a time of crisis. Luckily, we have just digitalized and updated our resource book, a huge job. And thank you to the members who did that huge job. So this information is easily available now to our volunteers. Each member of the social care team is asked to attend our team meetings once a month, Monday mornings from 10 to 12. And they're actually quite interesting and often can be fun. At these meetings, we present the services that have been asked of us during that month, something about how the visits went and the outcome of the visits. All member personal information is kept confidential. If volunteers are dealing with complicated situations, our staff person and our team are there for you for a consult at these meetings, so we can troubleshoot, discuss particular situations that may be a little more problematic, and give whoever the volunteer is lots of support in resolving the issues. We do ask 2 members of our team to volunteer to be on call each month, and it's rare for them to have more than 1 case each month, but they may have several contacts with that person that they're working with during the month until the problem is solved. And this contact is usually limited to a maximum of 3 visits, and that often does it, although there are instances where we have to stay involved a bit longer. Often members call for information that can be dispensed easily just through a phone call, like they may need the name of a home care agency. But at other times, it really is important to make a home visit. And that is pre-pandemic, mostly what we have done. During the pandemic, we've unfortunately had to do this over the phone. And now we're starting to meet where both members are vaccinated, either in the backyard or some instances where both the member and the volunteer feel comfortable actually in the member's home. And it's important because when you visit the home, you can connect better with the person and get a better understanding of the problem and how best to solve it. And as I said before, if situations get complicated or involve the safety of a member, the staff person overseeing member support is called in to handle the situation. And fortunately, these kinds of situations are really quite rare. But in any case, the volunteer is never left with such a situation to handle on their own. So for the most part, our interactions with our members are pleasant and rewarding, and it really feels good to help someone in need, particularly people who are in acute need. So I want to give you a couple of examples. One very simple example of a case I handled several years ago was of a retired professional who was caring for his wife who was suffering from advanced dementia. He was really caring and devoted to her, and he wanted to do his best to make her life as easy as possible, despite the stress and the strain on him. One day at our visit, he looked really tired and told me that he hadn't been sleeping much because his wife was becoming incontinent and wetting the bed each night. He had never heard about adult Pampers. In this case, such a simple conveying of some relevant information contributed to making his life a great deal easier. And there was certainly a lot more to do for him, but it was such a striking example how sometimes just a simple piece of information or a simple resource can be so helpful. And that's often how it is on the social care team. Another case involved a very devoted couple living in a rather remote area in the Berkeley Hills. The husband was in really good health, but his spouse was hard of hearing, visually impaired, increasingly less mobile, and quite dependent on him for getting on each day. They loved living where they were and they didn't want to move, but the husband was really worried about what would happen to his wife should he die. A consultation by one of our members about fiduciaries, home care providers, possible retirement communities, which he could arrange for in advance, put his mind at rest. And these are but a few examples about how we can be helpful to our members. And it's really one of the, at least in my opinion, one of the most important services that Ashby Village offers, because, you know, when a member is in kind of a crisis, let's say they've broken a leg and they're being sent home from the hospital and need home care, or they've just lost a spouse or a loved one and they're really needing a lot of support, that we can be there for them, we can help them, and we can connect them with services that can help them. So it is really a very important service, and I hope some of you would like to join us. I want to introduce Linda Rose now, one of our wonderful social care team members, who can tell you a little more about what it's been like to volunteer for social care. Linda?
Okay. One of the things, I was part of the group that put together the resource information. There was we had a lot of information, but it wasn't all organized in an easily accessible way. And so if you're on this team, there's a great resource for you to go to depending on what question or what situation comes up. The example I was going to give, and for me, it's always been gratifying. One of the things by volunteering for Ashby Village is that I feel like, hey, my skills are still usable. You know, even though I'm not in a regular job, I still have skills and they still come in handy. And that's been gratifying as I do this work. I'm also on the connections team, by the way, too, and that's very enjoyable and a lot of fun. The example I was going to give was, it was during, I think, the summer of 2020. So it was during the height of the pandemic. And there was a member, older member in her late 80s. She lived alone and had fallen and had been found by actually another volunteer who was getting groceries for her. She ended up in the hospital and then eventually rehab, but her only support was another sister about her age with similar issues. And she needed to come home and have help. So she had her nephew down as a contact. Her nephew lived out of state. And so my contact with him was by phone. The good thing is he was there and ready to do whatever needed to be done. So I could just lead him along the way of making sure he had power of attorney, that he got to see his aunt, in this case, that he was able to talk to her doctors. That's something we couldn't do. That he could then do all the necessary things to have a power of attorney or whatever. And I then provided him with some choices for home care and also a geriatric caseworker in this situation. I also, by going through the main office, helping him find somebody to clean the house because she had left it in quite a mess. And in that situation, it was a weekend or something, and he came himself and did the cleaning. And I even was able to help him find appliance repair for the washing machine because they had clothes to wash. But all this relationship was over the phone, and I just became the resource for him and helping direct him. So when he was here to do what he needed to do, he had what he needed to have. And I felt that as very gratifying because I felt I was really helping somebody. I actually only talked with the member once, but I was mainly in contact with the nephew and keeping up to date on what that was. So I felt really good in that process.
That was such a great example because, it's so important when people are in crisis situations like that they don't have to go scurrying through the yellow pages or Google or whatever people do these days to try to find resources and really not know which ones are reputable or not. And that's one of the services we can provide, which is to help you get the services that Ashby Village has for you. And where we don't have those services, really help you find services in the community that are reputable, because we have checked so many of them out before we put them on our list. Thank you so much, Linda, for that great example. Now, if you have questions about our team, I'd be happy, Linda and I would be happy to try to answer them.
Can you check and change the load? Change.
Oops, are there any hands up? Yes.
I once again,
Yeah, well, let's try. Is it Bertha? Is that you?
Bertha.
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 Yes. And Judy, you'll be
Yes.
next.
So I have a question. You mentioned that there are 2 volunteers on call each month. So how does one connect with those people? Especially I'm thinking if things happen on a weekend, which they often tend to do somehow. How does one connect with those members in a situation like that? Is there a special way? I mean, calling the office would not necessarily provide help in an emergency.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the one thing that Ashby Village cannot do. We are not available on weekends. And in that case, if it really was an emergency, well, if it's an emergency, you have to call 911 anyway.
Right.
I mean, we're not respond that way. But yeah, we are only available during the week. Once you've made a connection, there are volunteers who certainly would be willing to talk to you, or can't speak for all of them.
Okay. Thank you.
Speak. Judy.
I have a question because I volunteer with the outreach group, and I do a lot of phone calls to people who are interested in Ashby Village and wanting to know more of the services. And this has been really helpful to know really what services are out there. But I have a question. I have occasionally had a couple where one of the partners is healthy and pretty independent, but the other one may have some slight dementia or declining health. And it's unclear to me whether they are appropriate to join Ashby Village if one member is not as independent as we hope they would be. Is it something that do we discourage it as new members and we then help out our existing members who are declining? Or how do we, would they join as a couple, but we don't provide services to the person that's got more issues? How do we sort that out?
That's a really, really important question. And it's become an increasingly important question, which we are actually forming a task force to look into, because we have more and more people wanting to join Ashby Village where there are exactly that kind of situation. One member is more impaired or suffering from dementia. And it's a case-by-case situation. We try to be very clear about what Ashby Village can provide and what it can't. And there are some instances where we have to say, let's say a spouse has moderate to advanced dementia. We make it very clear we can't provide individual services to that member, but we can to the spouse. We can also advise the spouse about resources for the spouse that may need more help. And then it's up to that member to decide whether that provides enough and that makes sense for them to join Ashby Village. But it's a case-by-case situation. And actually, I don't know if Avi is still on, but he's often handled those cases, looking into their application and talking to them about what we can and cannot do. But that's a really good question, because
And I recently worked with one where the wife had some cognitive impairment and some walking issues, but I went, and the husband was very had most of his capabilities, and I just mainly assessed the situation. And in this situation, she wanted somebody to walk with, and she was really doing very well, and she really knew what she was doing when she was walking. So in this situation, we were able to work with the couple and provide them what they needed. We actually matched them with a connections person. And then he also got clear on what Ashby Village services could or couldn't do.
And Judy, I would just add, from the staff admin side, the biggest concern is always the safety of our volunteers. And, the biggest consideration is if a volunteer is there providing a service for a member with a mild cognitive impairment who then doesn't know where they are or is confused about the volunteer, and it becomes potentially a dangerous situation. That's our main concern. Is we don't want to put our volunteers into any situations where something could arise and they're there by themselves. So I think with some of these newer cases, there's a caregiver, or we're making sure that the partner is always there. But I think for now it is a case-by-case basis.
And that's a very important point. We don't want to leave a volunteer in a situation that's potentially dangerous, either for the volunteer or for the member. Other questions? I can't see everybody at once. Do you see any? Okay.
I just wanted to add one thing to that about connections. We are clear with the connections members that the connections volunteer isn't there as a substitute for a home care person or somebody to watch. When we come over as a friend, they still need to have their home care person there, or their husband there, or whoever they would. We're not relieving somebody. That's not our role. Our role is really just to come as a friendly visitor.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, and now Jeanette is going to tell you about healthier aging.
Hi. So that was all really interesting, and I also am a member of the Connections team, and I find it very rewarding to provide some assistance in that way. So the Healthier Aging program includes nature walks to promote exercise, the Embracing Change lecture series, and various exercise classes that are offered. Let's start with the nature walks and our recruitment for hike leaders. These walks have become very popular, even in the heat of some of our summer days. And this is probably because it's one of the only chances to see others in real life. I know it meant a lot to me to be able to see Ashby Village folks that I had only ever seen on Zooms. We try to have a flat, easy walk, usually on the second Monday, in neighborhoods or in park-to-park settings. And I see Shirley is on here. Hi, Shirley. And she leads many of these. In fact, I'll do a plug for October 11th. the Cedar Rose Park to the Strawberry Creek Park, which will be a walk along the old Santa Fe Railroad corridor. And another walk that's coming up in November that Audrey, who is also on here, hi Audrey, will be doing is to the Arrowhead Marsh. So those are flat and easy walks that members may need. And so these are the walks that some of our walking buddies could perhaps do once someone's had a chance to assess what they're able to do and do they need help even getting to where those walks are. So those are the easier walks. And then we also have more rigorous nature walks on either the 3rd or 4th Wednesday on some of our East Bay Park hiking trails. For these, we try to have some variety, and we try to have an easy walk, an easier walk on a trail, as well as a more challenging option trail to explore. We want to accommodate the various levels of walking pace and the distances that we can do. And so we need walk leaders. To be a walk leader, you don't necessarily need to know all the trails and all about, what's out there in our community, because we have people like Audrey and Celeste Burrow, who is also on here, I see, that have been doing walks for a long time, and they know trails like the back of their hand. If you wanted to become a walk leader, you might be someone who could accompany a member back to the parking lot at various points along the way, or you might be someone who just knows and can share ideas about some good places to walk for these two different types of walks that we have. We've seen some of our newest members on our hikes, like Jody. Hi, Jody. And these members, and we also have members who bring guests. And so this has become a really good way to recruit new members for Ashby Village. It's hard to say if it's the beautiful views on the walks or the conversations that are the biggest draw for these walks, because everyone has a really good time. So if you want to come, just come to some of these walks that are on the calendar. You might find that you would be a walk leader with us as well. And my email, as well as all the rest of us who've been talking so far, is in the chat box that Suyin has put up. So you can contact any of us directly looking at the emails that we have. The other program I wanted to talk about is Embracing Change. This is the lecture series we put together for age-related health education. And some of our recent presentations have included hearing loss, nutrition, pain management, and a very exciting update on dementia that's going to be happening on October 21st, which is on the calendar already. Roberta and I have been fortunate that we've been able to find various speakers, and our partnership with Kaiser has also provided some of our presenters. But we could use volunteers that could help us with recruiting speakers, developing collaborations, or help plan and facilitate the events, which I guess will be on Zoom for a while longer. And then perhaps it will become some kind of a hybrid Zoom and live event. Who knows? We'll find out, right? We could also use some help with writing and editing presentations for the newsletter that Roberta mentioned. There's always a column for healthier aging. So if you have, an interest in writing and you can help put some pizzazz in our write-ups, we'd love to hear from you. Roberta is going to tell you a little bit more about exercise classes, and then we can take your questions or comments about the healthier aging, what it is, and how you might be able to be a part of it.
I'll just add that I hope many of you know that Ashby Village, before the pandemic, had a wide range of classes, and that has been curtailed somewhat during the pandemic, just because we couldn't gather in person. But we have been doing 2 classes online, the yoga class and the aerobics class. And then, of course, we've had the hiking program. But typically, we've had classes in Tai Chi. We've had workshops on fall prevention. We've had strength training in addition to the yoga and the aerobics class. We've been without a permanent yoga teacher until now, and we are about to unveil our new class in yoga with Nancy Yates. She's going to be doing a free introductory class on October 14th. That's a Thursday at 10. And then she'll start regular classes on October 28th, which will meet from 10 to 11:30. And we're really looking forward to having a permanent teacher at Ashby Village. So that's another area where you can volunteer if you're interested in helping with finding teachers to teach classes and helping to set it up and monitor them. We'd always love to have some help with that as well. But we do need hiking leaders, and we're always open to people who have ideas about health and wellness presentations that they would like to organize and help us with. So thank you, and please join us. And now I think we'd have some time for questions. Yes, we do. People have questions about that team or comments. Yes, Jody.
Well, I'm new to the village and I would like to volunteer, but apparently I have to go through some classes which have been suspended. So how do you recruit volunteers right now? And then I can decide where I can help out. I would love to help out.
I'm not sure I understand. Well,
Roberta, I think the question was, since we aren't having volunteer training, how does somebody become a volunteer?
Yes,
Exactly.
an excellent question. It's been very difficult. And part of the reason we are having this today is because it's been so difficult. So what we are doing is we're looking to see who's interested in getting involved. And then we will be offering a mini training about our particular teams. And we always do that anyway. Anybody who joins the social care team gets a training, or the connections team gets a training. So that we do anyway, but we'd have to enlarge it. And what we are hoping to do is, in addition to our individual training, we'll get someone from our staff, now that we have a new staff person on board, to do a mini training around all the other issues around becoming a volunteer. And hopefully the larger volunteer training will be up and running before too long, even if it has to be on Zoom. Suyen, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that sounds right. Yeah, we're a bit short-staffed right now, so we've kind of been keeping the volunteer trainings on hold. We have a long list of people who have contacted us and are interested, but like Roberta said, the point for today especially was to find members and volunteers who are already tied in with us in some way, and to see what interest there is and to try and work out some solutions. We held a mini training for Jeanette to get her up and going for one service type. And so if there's interest, we'll definitely do what we can to get you going.
May I say something about that too? One of the things that Roberta mentioned and Mimi and I both mentioned is that our teams meet regularly. And at those teams, it's one, Roberta mentioned, whatever's discussed is confidential. The other thing is it's really ongoing training and ongoing knowledge that you gather from your peers. And so that's always ongoing. And that's considered part of the training. So I just wanted to mention that.
We do have a comment from Mary Lee, who said, will this contact information be available on the website or the YouTube channel? I assume you mean the email, our various emails.
Yes, so this recording will be on our YouTube channel. It will be shared in our October newsletter. But for those of you who are attending today, if you're in the chat box, where you can actually type in a little above it to the right, you should see 3 dots. And if you click on that, you can then click on Save File, and that will actually store this for you. So after the meeting ends, you'll have those emails you can copy, or you can copy and paste this information into your email now. But yeah, with the leader's permissions, I can also put your emails in the video description or on our newsletter.
Great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Susan.
Good morning. Well, you know, part of the good news about Ashby Village is that it's gotten really big, certainly geographically speaking. But I'm wondering if there is an effort to couple a volunteer and a service member geographically. You know, we've all gotten so used to not having to drive and park a long ways away for a meeting. So I think it would encourage volunteers, it would encourage me if I knew that I could volunteer to take a walk with or visit someone close by.
Roberta, are you going to address that, or may I address it real
Why don't
quickly?
you go ahead and I'll add to anything you don't cover.
Okay, Susan, that's a really important question for us, and we have been working on that. In 1 or 2 cases, connections have been made only by phone because of the distance. But Mimi and I always ask a member what part of town they're from, or, you know, whether they're in Oakland or Albany. And we then, of course, tell the volunteer where this person is and whether or not that, you know, will work out. As we've expanded, it's been a little bit more challenging. So it's wonderful when, you know, new people from Oakland come, both as volunteers and as members. It's really, you know, it helps, but we do work on that.
And I would just add that that's true for the social care team as well. And we've been really very open and anxious to have volunteers from the North Oakland Village geographic area to join us on the social care team for that very reason, so that we don't have volunteers from North Berkeley going off to somewhere in the Oakland Hills or whatever. So it is important to try to have volunteers from the various areas. That's true, like for Richmond volunteers as well. We'd like to have them placed in their community. So yes, we are trying to do that as best we can as we get bigger and bigger. Okay, well, we're almost out of time, but we're open. Jeanette, unless you have anything more to say, we could open it up to general questions. Are you?
I'm done, and I think more questions would be great, or comments, or.
Sure.
Mary Lee Cole had her hand up.
Well,
Yes.
one more thing. I'm interested. I sort of don't know where to begin. So there are a lot of choices here. I'm out in the hinterlands of Point Richmond. But in any case, so what is your advice of a place to start to sort of learn and grow, to figure where your talents lie and what's best? I mean, there's a vast array of options you've given us.
Yeah.
Is there some way to get your toe in and feel comfortable before making further commitments?
Well, I would suggest that if you're willing, that you feel free to email or call. If you email us, we'd be happy, at least I would be happy, and I think the rest of the team leaders would be happy to talk with you directly on the phone and discuss what we do and what your talents are and suggest how you might get involved. And you can call all of us. We're all happy to speak with you.
I would suggest that that you might want to pop in on, you know, a social care meeting or a connections meeting to see what it's all about. And certainly in the case of healthier aging, come on one of our walks and we'll have a chance to talk to you more about all of the healthier aging programs. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Judith Coates.
I just wanted to follow up on something I may have misunderstood, but I thought somebody made reference to a new staff member. Has there been somebody hired for this function?
Yeah, you're among the first to know because it's just happened yesterday.
Oh, that's
We haven't
exciting.
made an official announcement yet, but yes, we have a new member services coordinator who's going to begin in a few weeks on October 12th.
Oh, great.
Her name is Karen Dean. She's a social worker who just a terrific person. You know, a panel interviewed her, staff interviewed her. She's a former colleague of Su Yen, who recommends her very highly. And we're just really excited. She's a terrific person. I think she's going to bring a lot of, you know, skill and heart and warmth and energy to the role. And we're just really excited that she's going to be starting soon.
That's great. That's great. Congratulations.
Yeah, and I will echo that. I thought she was just terrific. We're really lucky to have her.
And she's someone, just to remind folks, she's going to have, we've restructured things, so she will be staffing this member services work. She will also be doing other member support and services work in terms of welcoming, orienting, checking in with people, members, and organizing that effort. And she'll also be staffing the neighborhood group council. So she's going to be a really central person in people connecting with, you know, joining and connecting with and caring for each other.
Great.
Yay.
Jyoti, do you have a last question and then we'll.
Yeah,
get ready
I'm
to
still
close?
not clear about my volunteering. The initial training is on the back burners. So you said the groups can do, where can I volunteer right now?
The initial training, the volunteer training is on the back burner. Since we're going to have a new person in just a couple of weeks, we'll know more about it. I think that if any of these programs interest you, you might want to contact the person whose email address is in the chat box, and then we can take it from there. Roberta, does that sound right to you? Jeanette?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to say goodbye because I unfortunately have an 11 o'clock appointment. It was a pleasure seeing those of you who I already know and who are on the team, and really nice to meet the new people. And I look forward to having some of you volunteer with the Connections team. Thank you so much.
Bye, Ellen, and thank you.
Bye.